Good afternoon. Today I'm going to be talking about artificial intelligence in the hive mind and how dire the situation is. So I'm going to play this little video. It's about 10 minutes in length, and it's very important. And it shows you the seriousness of what's going on. It's a UK news conference with these two gentlemen, and they're talking about the seriousness of this. And also the dude they're interviewing, I think his name's Graham something anyway. Notice he says that this is a 5-year-old report, but listen what he says. Notice when he says, oh yeah, the professor that one of the main people working on this, which is a professor, said, well, why don't we get everybody who's suicidal and take them and experiment on them? They want to die anyway. So we need to do this in order to get this consciousness of this hive mind for this data. So that's what they're doing us target individuals. They're using us to harvest data to link everybody eventually to this collective hive mind. I'm trying to think of what else he said that would be interesting for y'all. I'm trying to think. Anyway, I'm exhausted because I spent an hour. I put this video together first as a commentary, and it did not work out that way. An hour later, I woke up from being asleep and find out there's no sound. Y'all could hear me talking, but you couldn't hear them talking when I played it. So I'm trying to figure out how to do that. So be patient with me. So I'm rushing through this video right here, and then I'm going to merge the video and get on with my day because it's very hard when you're a target individual. It's not easy just to get up here and do a video. I mean, it takes a lot of energy just trying to do that stuff. So if I rush through this, I'm sorry, but it'll be worth watching when I'm fixing to play. So I'm trying to think of the other point he made. He made a point about getting people for suit. Oh yeah, and then he says, "Oh yeah, another thing to watch out for." He says, "Well, they keep emphasizing how it's being tested on animals, but if you hear one reporter says, "Oh yeah, we've even had people claim that it's being done secretly on humans," but the basic facts is they talk about this hive mind, this collective hive mind. They're going to have control of everybody eventually. This report's 5 years old, like I said. Also notice how he says, well, all the technology is not perfected yet. The technology is perfected. Anytime the news talks about something and says, well, it's a few years behind, and we got a few years to go, it's already here. The government's 60 years advanced, of course. So anyway, sorry I'm rushing this video. Like I said, I thought it was all good and all up. All the information was up. And come to find out, I woke up an hour later and people were, I can't hear you. I can't hear the sound. So anyway, I hope this is better. God bless y'all, and I hope y'all have a good weekend considered we're targeted. But just remember, be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Do not become bitter because of this. If you're bitter, mind control technology works better on bitter people than people who still have love in them. So anyway, God bless y'all, and please watch this. Sorry if I couldn't explain it that good. I'm kind of in a hurry because I'm not feeling good and getting hit as we speak. So God bless y'all. Y'all have a good weekend. Here's the video.
It says in 2011, Lieber was recognized by Thomson Reuters as a leading chemist in the world based on the impact of his scientific publications. And there's a quote there which says, personal computing will become very, very personal. Currently, our interface is through the peripheral nervous system, input by touch and voice, output to eyes and ears. In a very personal future, we work directly from our brains, integrating 3D nanoelectronics with our neural networks. We will have already created the blueprint for innervated or cyborg tissue, and recently shown how electronics can be injected into and intermingled with the brain to modify Descartes' cogito ergo sum. My future of computing is I think, therefore it happens.
Yeah, so there's different aspects to artificial intelligence, and there's different aspects to transhumanism, which is what you're talking about there. Some people perceive that it's many, many, many years away. And some people perceive that, oh, we don't have to worry about it, it's never going to happen. They haven't really developed the computer power to give us all these problems. And that's not necessarily correct, because one of their goals is to upload our consciousness, our minds into these machines. I mean, sounds crazy, but that's actually one of the goals. We're not there yet, although they are alluding to, they do have an idea that they can do that a lot quicker than what we may have thought. However, where we are at the moment is we are definitely at a place where they can literally plug you into the internet, which is just to give you a very simple way of understanding that. And what that scientist there is describing now. Yeah, and if you want to lead on with that mind reading rats there.
There you go.
Yeah, well, this is really what the experiment is. It's not just literally what they do is they inject a mesh which interfaces in between your skull and your brain. And what it does is it literally is used to connect you to the internet. Okay, they've done the experiments on it. It's tolerated very well. And this rats was some of the early experiments on it. And what they did was they connected these rats they were separated by thousands of miles. And what they found was they could connect them to work as one. And they call it a brain net. And what they're really saying is that, well, to the listener, you'll understand that as the hive mind. Now, if people think this is somehow sci-fi or conspiracy theory, they're absolutely wrong, and they're way behind this, because this is here now. It's been done. It's been done in experiments, and it's been proven to work. And this is the technology. This is the first phase of technology that's going to come after the kind of AI goggles, the kind of Google virtual world stuff. After that is coming this stuff, and this is going to come in a lot sooner than you think. And quite frankly, it terrifies me.
Graham, I'll just interject there. As I read that particular slide, my mind goes to the people who would be there in the laboratory taking animals and carving them up in order to experiment in this way. I find this absolutely obscene, and I think that the human beings that are involved in this, these are very, very dangerous people.
They are very dangerous. And I in the first lecture I gave, and I actually quoted UK professors, I think at least one we're going to mention in a second, and one of them wrote a book on it, and he actually put forward the idea that what we should do, we should experiment on people that want to commit suicide. In other words, we should do experiments that probably end up in their death. But the data we could get would be really, really useful for us, because we could move forward with our sort of transhumanist agenda. And, and to a sane human being that has any sense of morality or soul or feeling, that is absolutely horrifying. But this is the kind of mentality that you're dealing with. And really, it's a very sociopathic mentality with this really low or very little empathy for human beings. And they see us as an old model. They see us that they have to progress further from us, that we're nothing. We're kind of like the 1.0. They want to go on to the 2.0 and the 3.0 model. And quite frankly, I think they're insane, some of them.
So this one is The Guardian. Elon Musk wants to connect brains to computers with a new company. So is he talking about human brains now, or is he still working with rats?
No, his company is the business side of those experiments you saw. The mesh technology is the technology that he's developing, that he's talking about bringing out as a product for us, for you and me to use. Now, okay, putting aside the craziness of that and putting aside the fact, well, we might go, well, we don't want to use that. The reality is this: when you look at their models for this, their models don't allow you not to use this. You are going to have to move with this, quote unquote. Not least because you will not be able to keep up with the artificial intelligence itself, and it will price you out of the market. And his reaction is the Hegelian dialect, where he says, look, if we don't do this, we aren't going to be able to keep up with AI, and AI will dominate us and eventually will eradicate us. And this is not, a wild thing he's saying. It's just a very, very established thought that if we don't keep up with this stuff, it will eradicate us. And you've only got to look to history, you've only got to look to science, you've only got to look to nature. If you introduce a species which is more advanced, then the lower species eventually is subjugated and got rid of. And this is a very big worry in academic circles about this. And not everybody's on board with this AI kind of technology. But unfortunately, the leaders and the movers and shakers in this are being funded at the highest level and through governments, and this is a very, very big worry because it doesn't appear to be any common sense break on it.
So let's look at one of the scientific reports, and this is from 2015, building an organic computing device with multiple interconnected brains. It says brain nets, i.e. networks formed by multiple animal brains cooperating and exchanging information in real time through direct brain-to-brain interfaces, could provide the core for a new type of computing device, an organic computer. Here we describe the first experimental demonstrations of such a brain net built by interconnecting 4 adult brain rats. We've talked about the coverage of this, but what they're saying there, a brain net, multiple animal brains, but what we're developing is an organic computer. At what point do they feel that animal brains are not sufficient for this, and they need to look at some quote unquote higher form of brain matter?
Well, this is it. Really, this is the work that's leading on to that. And as I've said, the decision's already been made. It's already done. And and you've got Musk now, who's with billions involved in these companies, setting this technology up to bring it so that your kids can be plugged in. And the models they talk about is that you are connected as an organic computer. I mean, this is one of the most quote unquote conspiratory theories that's been around for many years, decades. But the reality is we're now facing the reality of that. It is no longer a conspiracy. The science is done. They're rolling out the commercial aspect to this, and they're developing this. And you will see this. And this is the next step on from the virtual reality goggles. And this is why it terrifies me. And this is why I'm trying to wake people up, to use that horrible hackneyed phrase, is that people still feel this is many years away, 50 years away, 60 years away. One aspect of AI is, but this aspect is very close. And they're not going to stop with this. And the nature of this, once it becomes commercial and money's made from it, they're not going to stop from this. And of course, if you understand the bigger picture of where this sits, you understand why this is being pushed and how dangerous this technology can be. There are aspects of AI that's very good, but only when it's capped. And at the moment, there's no cap. They're just going to keep pushing forward with this.
And so who's Andy Adamatsuki?
This is a British professor, and I think he's University of West of England. I'm not can't remember which university that is. It might be Birmingham or something like that. I mean, the quote there, if you read that quote, Mike, is terrifying. I mean, I read it out at AV8 and people just gasped.
Okay, so it says personal computing will become intrapersonal computing and intracellular. Each human neuron will be hijacked by a self-growing, self-repairing molecular network. Computers will be networks of polymer filaments growing inside and together with a human. Seeds of that network will be injected into embryos in the first month of their development. They will form a gigantic network inside the brain. Computers will be inside us. They will span all living creatures in a united computing network.
That is an immensely unpleasant couple of sentences there, Mike. Somebody in our chat room has said, and yes, what they're doing to animals, they're also doing to human beings in secret. The moment you see mention of doing stuff with embryos, is he talking about the future? Not in my opinion. Somebody somewhere's doing it.
Yeah. What are your thoughts?
Well, what he's described. See, look, you've got to read what these are published papers. This isn't in a book written by an author that someone would say is off his head. This is published literature. This is what shocked me when I started to speak in these circles, is that people didn't realize this stuff is actually going on, to kind of echo what you said. And it's dangerous because of that. And I don't want my kids plugged into this stuff. And I certainly hope that anyone who's got a rational or two brain cells working, they wouldn't want their kids plugged into this stuff. I went through in great detail even what the virtual reality does to the brain. You're shutting down and changing the very function of the brain, not just the function, the physiology of the brain, but actually changing the structure of the brain when you use this technology. And the more you use it, the least you're going to be able to come back into the normal three-dimensional world and behave normally in a three-dimensional world. It changes the way that your brain works. And it's almost as if we're releasing this artificial intelligence from out of this electronic world into the real world, and they're putting the human consciousness from the wonderful, beautiful three-dimensional world that we should be living in into this horrible electronic ghetto, quite frankly. And prison, it really what it will be almost like a digital prison. There are aspects that we can use, but where they're heading with it is not a good place.
And you are stressing there, Graham, that people who are allowing their children to use this sort of technology, and you see very young children with phones clamped to their ears, but you're now talking about this 3D stuff. Parents who allow their children to use this are actually allowing those children to be damaged, their brains to be damaged by what they're playing with.
Absolutely. You should not let your kid on anything under the age of 2 years of age, because damage done to the brain then can be irreversible. There's no doubt on that. And really and truthfully, they shouldn't be on this stuff under the age of 12, and you must limit it. Certainly do not let them go on these virtual reality goggles, because they absolutely damage the brain. Okay,
Well, Graham, look, I'll tell
Yeah.
you now that they are getting onto these virtual reality goggles in schools. It's being pushed onto them late primary school, early secondary school is the level they're at the moment. I'm not sure whether it's happening any younger, but they are absolutely getting virtual reality through the schools already.
Absolutely, and you see this, and thank God some parents are going and complaining about this, because what they're doing now is have just normal computers. Reading a book and reading is not just about looking at something on a screen. And when you just look at something on a screen and don't read it and actually touch the paper, actually your comprehension goes down, because the brain doesn't just work visually. They've done experiments on that. So if you let your kids go to school and just read from a computer, your kids aren't going to be as bright and as intelligent. That's point one. That's without all the damage from the Wi-Fi. That's a whole other program, just talking about the Wi-Fi. But these goggles, these virtual reality goggles, they damage the mind. Okay, they create a depersonalization, derealization disorder. It is known in the literature. Okay, and if you get that DVD, I show you all the science references to back that up. So if they're using that in school, you need to get that DVD, look at it, and you need to note down those references. You need to walk into school, you need to say, you're damaging my kid, you need to stop this.